Hey, welcome back. This is your average esports podcast, episode 27. It's been a while.
It's been a long time.
A long time. A lot of things have happened since the last time we did this. So we're mostly just going to go over the lands this time for Dota 2 and CS:GO. So may as well just get into it. No introduction really needed, right? So basically there's only been two lands in Dota, and there's only been one land I actually cared about, ESL Hamburg. And even though it's like not part of the major circuit, it had the better teams at that tournament. And then after that, we can talk a bit about the major that's coming up this week. So ESL Hamburg, let's go from top to bottom. Fucking Secret One, Puppy returns to the top of the world again. In a sense.
Yeah, sort of. I feel like the result is like right now. Obviously, everybody looks towards Secret at the major now as like one of the favorites going into the event. Probably teams would have done that anyway, even if that only plays like third or fourth or whatever. But outside of that, I feel like this result doesn't really mean anything because we've seen Puppy teams especially have their moments where they're like the best team at some point
before they fall back.
It's just always the question of like how long can they actually keep that alive, and I think we can obviously I don't want to like discredit this tournament entirely because there's a lot of information that we get from it, but there's a reason why OG, for example, skipped out on like all the events until like I think they don't intend on playing until like December-ish or even January-ish.
I assume this is not until the second major cycle starts for them.
Yeah, because ultimately all that matters is whether or not you perform at TI. Right, performing up until then kind of only matters if you want to like secure a like early invite or an early spot. But until then, like it really matters how you perform at TI. And like performing early in the season rarely equates to actually performing well at the end of the
literally
season.
never.
Literally never, yeah. That's actually goddamn true. Yeah, and for Secret especially, last year they were Dream League champions. They took the Dream League major. That was the second major of the season, and they looked really strong. They were like second in the first major, and then they first in the second major, and now they're like first at ESL One Hamburg, which is, I think, in terms of like competitiveness, was as close to a major as it gets. Really, we were kind of like missing Liquid and LGD, obviously, and OG, but still, this is like good, but it's like whatever. But I think, the takeaways here are the fact that Secret does as a team work. I think everybody, and us, the two of us included, looked at this team as an upgrade towards the previous roster, or a lot of people at least did. Some people were still wondering, like, was it really an upgrade? Like, they did place like 6 or whatever, but as Secret, you want to win TI, you want to win like more titles, and I think this team is an upgrade, and I think you could tell that this team is an upgrade simply by the way that Mid One was just like going off again. Like Mid One was just really probably the best player in that team at that event. I think he did even win the MVP award.
Say he was the best player.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Zai actually won it for the end. Like,
I don't know. Either way, like Mid One to me was the best player of that event and best player on Secret, obviously. So I think that's when Secret is the strongest, when he's also the strongest.
Yeah, he's clearly the superstar player. He always has been ever since he joined this lineup. Like I did Like, you can see it, basically, when this Secret lineup died was specifically when Mid One died, and nothing they could do about it.
Pretty much.
Right?
Like, I think every time they've been successful is when they found a way to enable Mid One, and while never, like, super hardcore neglecting the others. And when they were struggling, like you said, it was because they were, if anything, trying to enable the others surrounding Mid One, because they just assumed, like, well, Mid One is just going to Mid One things, but as good as a player he may be, he still needs a team to support him. Like, he can't just... And Secret already, even though I say they enable him, they still, to a very certain degree, leave him to be and like, just leave him alone. They give him 1v2 matchups. They give him 1v3 matchups. He's like, because they know they can trust him. But when they do give them that now, for example, at ESL, it's because, all right, they draft him a favorable matchup, or at the very least, they draft him a hero where they know that he can excel at, and then they just, play around that a lot in the mid game as well. Whereas last season, they did that up until Dream League Major as well. But afterwards, you could tell they were trying to compensate for Ace's lack of, like, incredibly good hero pool. Like, he had, like, 2 to 3 heroes where he was really good at, but then everybody else was... Every other hero was just like, eh. right? And they tried really hard to compensate for that, and it just didn't really work out. So I hope that with Nisha now, I know I'm just repeating myself.
He's another ace.
He's just a very, very solid carry. This is really, really good carry. Like, I think out of like all the carries in the world right now, you would want to like rely on, I think Nisha is probably like at least top like 7-ish in that regard. We're like, all right, just give him whatever, and he'll probably do whatever, but he'll still be like good.
Okay, all right, yeah, because that's my question, because I wasn't able to see all the games, because like all the Dota and CS:GO events are like combining or overlapping basically at this point, so it's tough to watch all of them. But yeah, I also really liked how Zai and YAPzor work together. I feel like this combination is better than the previous combination. I forget who was playing.
Fata.
Yeah.
I think it works much better as well for a couple of reasons, and I think the most dominant one is the fact that Zai just knows how to play a 4 position, because obviously he's been a 4 position for the longest time himself. It just feels like he knows the rhythm a little bit better in terms of like how to like utilize like YAPzor as a partner. But at the same time, I mean, Zai is just also one of the best players in the world, so it's, you know, I feel like you could throw him on any position and he would still probably be outperforming a lot of people in the world, if not most.
Yeah.
So it's just Zai things.
Except 5, obviously. EG tried that to their great disgrace.
Oh, that was rough. That was rough.
But yeah, any other position, sure, but definitely not 5.
Actually, Nate, didn't they put Crit as 5 and then
they put Crit as 5? That didn't work, and then sometimes Zai had to play 5, and that really didn't work. That's kind of how I remember it. But yeah, all right. So second place, the natural second, Vici Gaming. And I gotta say something. I have never believed in paparazzi for like the last like 2 years. Like, you're like, no man, listen, he's winning all those Chinese online qualifiers. He keeps making it land. There must be something about this guy. And you actually watch the games and you tell me, and then I'd watch that land and be like, yeah, there is something about this guy. He's like the master of the choke. Like, he's constantly choking, but 2 years later, here he is. Legit. I think he and Ori legitimately played great.
I think so too. I definitely think so too. And I mean, you can't really say too many bad things about a team that plays second, right? They must have done something right to get to where they are. And I think they work really well. I didn't expect them to work this well this early, because if you look at their core, like their tri-core, like the offlane and the 2 supports, those 3 haven't really played much together. If you compare it to the last core, for example, like I thought there was going to be a bigger adjustment phase, because especially when you put 2 supports together that haven't really played together before, it's going to take some time to like mesh well together, especially in terms of rotations and like how do you dominate lanes and whatever. But Vici Gaming kind of made it work. I thought the game, at least from the games that I've seen, I thought the team was pretty good. Yang was much better than I give him credit. I give him credit for a lot of times. I still think though that Vici Gaming has the issue that I just feel like Paparazzi and Ori can never be the best. Like it never feels like they are both having an incredible game at the same time. One of them will always have like a really good game, and the other one will have like, yeah, it's an okay game, and sometimes it's still a good game, but they will never have like both of them being like super strong. And maybe it's unrealistic to expect that, but when you have like 2 star players like that, it's like the EG conundrum, right? With Arteezy and Sumail. It's so difficult to figure out a way to enable both these superstars. And again, you can't really fault a team too much when they've placed second. But still, I think if they ever want to win a championship, I think they need to find a way to either enable both, or to still be okay if only one of them is enabled. Like Secret, for example, they're totally fine only enabling like mid one. If they only have like 1 superstar, they're fine. But to them, it always feels like if either one of them isn't really being like the best player in that team right now at that point, it feels a little bit off. It's just like the pacing is a little bit off. They'll not be as good, or they'll make like sketchy decisions, being out of position here and there. So I don't know. To me, I think going forward, if they just need to figure out that whole like EG thing, which EG has like struggled for like 2 years or whatever. So
yeah, so
that's not easy by any means.
I'm unsure if EG actually figured it out, but that's well, we will see in the upcoming season, right?
Yeah,
when they actually play with their roster.
That's kind of the thing, right? Going into TI, we weren't really sure they had a good showing at TI, but this is like the true test of the EG roster.
Yeah.
This season.
I will say this about Vici. It does feel like an ROTK team, even though he's actually not playing. He's just the coach. This does feel like an ROTK team. It's like, okay, fuck it. We're going to show everybody our fucking style of play, and then we're just gonna ram it down everybody's throats. And either you stop us or you don't. And I was like, yes, like this is exactly an ROTK style. And like everybody on the panel was like, yeah, man, this is too straightforward. It's too one-dimensional. But they just kept winning. So that's ROTK for you in a nutshell, isn't it?
And that's like some of the like very old school Chinese Dota as well. If you look at like TI2 drafts, for example, a lot of them were very one-dimensional. It's literally just, we're gonna group up, we're gonna force team fights, and we're gonna win the team fights and then win the game. Like in theory, that's very straightforward. That's very one-dimensional. But like if you're just really good at that, you're just gonna go ahead and win with that as well. And it's kind of like
I kind of respect it, just because like if you look at this team, a lot of them are rookies, so it's like it's actually a perfect style, especially if you think about the fact like you brought up this core's never played together, so it's like if he just forces them to play this style, it's like, well, everybody knows what they're doing, right?
Pretty much. I will give Fade a little bit of cred, because I thought that in the previous VGJ Thunder, before they kicked him for DDC, I thought he was actually one of their better players. I really liked him a lot as a player and as an in-game leader. I thought that one of the main reasons why they were really good at the time and like sort of like earned their spot, or like I guess like when they were like moving up in the world, he was sort of like one of the reasons for why that happened. But obviously they kicked him for like DDC, and they did have internal issues supposedly. So like, there's totally justified for why they kicked him. I just think it was really big of a shame for him, because I thought he was actually a standout player for me. So in that regard, I'm not entirely surprised like that they are performing. But again, it's like a completely new support duo. That you just don't throw two new supports together and they just click like that, except when it does. And you know, they just made it work. I know that some people have been criticizing DY, for example, like he might be like a little bit of like dead weight for that team. But I feel like if the support rotations are on point, like individual mistakes from the support are totally negligible in terms of like, oh, being out of position or dying or whatever. That's why Syndrin, like even though he like legitimately dies too often as a support, or has died too often, like that's one of the main things that people kept criticizing him for, he still made it to TI, because ultimately what he needs to do as a support and as a captain is lead the team, make sure that everybody else is following like the lead, and you know, putting down strategy, finding the right rotations, and as long as that at some point, you can die as much as you want in game. It's not going to weigh you down. And I feel like the same way about DY in that regard. But again, I don't know how much like he has input in terms of like actual leadership in the game, but still.
Yeah, and this is still pretty early as far as I remember. Like DY hasn't actually played on an international stage very much at all. Yeah, like I'm pretty sure this is like his first big one.
Pretty much. So this is like actual first like pro contract, or like not first pro contract, but like actual pro contract.
So unlike Paparazzi, he didn't get like a year of choking on land before he went to the next level. So
yeah,
so a bit different, like a bit different. So I actually think like eventually Paparazzi and Ori, like I don't know if it's gonna be with these three or if it's even gonna be on this team, but I think that duo is going to break through and win a big one at some point.
It feels like they're destined to. If you look at like sort of like the Chinese big wave, you know, you've had what, maybe SECC, like they kind of not destined. It feels like it's almost cursed actually, because you kind of want them, or you kind of think they would win championship titles, and you know, you've had first maybe, then it came in SECC, and Paparazzi and Ori are kind of like the generation after that. But all of them failed actually.
Hey man, maybe he got pretty fucking close. Maybe
he got close, but you know, still no cigar. So, it feels like it's almost cursed for these sort of like superstar mid players in China, or like these superstar core players in China. Like they have so many talented like superstar cores.
Hey, Unai and CCC got pretty close. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Like, it's goddamn cursed. I'll tell you.
Listen, man, one of them's got to eventually break through. I think this one might be it. But all right, go to third place. This one's pretty easy because I basically already called this one out before it started. Virtus Pro is going to go downhill. Third place. What'd I say? It's
honestly, it's whatever. I feel like Virtus Pro probably didn't take this. it sounds bad saying that they didn't take it seriously. It's like a lame excuse if you make it
as a
Virtus Pro fan, but it's kind of true. Like Virtus Pro have kind of this tendency to like not give a fuck about a lot of like these non-major events in the season, especially early in the season.
Yeah.
And this isn't a major, so why would they try like desperately want to show up?
They want to try their hardest.
I still think that this patch doesn't favor them. So in that regard, I like legitimately think there's a lot of like reasons for why they aren't succeeding even at TI. Like I know they also like choked at TI, right? Like they definitely choked there.
But part of the problem was the patch.
I do think the patch really doesn't favor them. And actually, if you listen, ESL Hamburg did like a sort of like a skit with the players, right? They're like, oh, what would you like to see change in 7.20 or whatever? And a lot of them gave like meme answers, like, oh, I want techies removed, I want Groomstroke removed, or whatever. Solo was the only one that said, I think the gold, the way gold is calculated for like kills, solo kills, and dual kills and whatever is a little bit messed up. And I think yada yada. He went on for like a 10-15 second rant or whatever. And that to me tells me a lot, because I legitimately think that this is something worrying for him and Virtus Pro, because they're so focused on aggression, but the way the patch works out right now, it actually punishes aggression a lot, because it, like OG proved, as long as you just have buyback and like a lot of like comeback potential, you're gonna like crush whoever's gonna be the aggressor. And they did.
The essential problem with being aggressive is like, how do I explain this? Okay, you know a little bit about StarCraft 2, so I'll explain it like this. One of the hardest games to play in StarCraft 2 is Terran versus Zerg. When you're doing like the mutiling, when you're doing like the Marine, like medevac Marauder, like tank style, because like you have to be all over the place and you have to like set it up and you have to like macro and stuff. But one of the easiest styles to play is the Broodlord Infestor style, because it's super imbalanced. Once you get to that composition, it's instant win basically. And that's kind of what's happening with Virtus Pro. Is like they can technically win with their style of play, but the level of execution demanded from them has to be like 99%.
Yeah.
Whereas like the level of execution for everybody else can be like waver between like 70 and 80. Like that's a huge differential. Like
pretty much. I will say that it kind of was similar, that in that regard was also similar to for OG actually. Even though they did play a style that was favorable for the patch, they're like really riding the edge. Like if they don't make their comeback like perfect, they're like gonna screw themselves. Like obviously if you're like on the edge of like being down 30k, you really have to play almost perfectly. So kind of for them as well. But I mean, that's why we're all saying Virtus Pro choked, right? Because we've seen them do that 99%, 100% play.
They've done it way more times than OG did. I'll tell you that.
Going into TI as well. Like they were just riding that wave, but at TI you could tell they're just like out of it. And I think this event they weren't necessarily out of it, but you could tell that they weren't like at 100% either. Because again, I legitimately don't think they actually cared about this event that much. But at the same time, again, this is like a really unfavorable patch for them. So I do think that once the new patch comes around, they'll probably try to like figure out what works for them, and we'll probably see a very dominant VP in like. I legitimately think after the major, we're going to be seeing probably VP as like the best team in the world for like 2 months.
I actually can't wait for the second cycle to begin, because I think the second cycle is going to be fucking sick.
I think it's going to be really sick, especially because OG steps back in again.
I feel like all the good teams are going to get back into form, and all the Chinese teams are going to get the right combination, and then you're going to have some sick games. So
plus you'll probably see a lot of roster shuffles after the major, because of how the new circle works out, or the new circuit works out, is that you can just make roster shuffles as much as you like, since you haven't gotten any points yet. So I legitimately think there's going to be a lot of roster shuffles with teams that didn't make the major, with teams that expected more out of the major,
with NIP very soon probably,
maybe. But yeah, there's going to be lots of happening for the second cycle, so I'm hyped for that as well.
All right. Let's see here.
You kind of talked about EG already.
We can skip them basically. They had a stand-in. Pain, actually. You want to talk about Pain? I thought they were surprisingly good, but I don't think they're going to reach this level once they get to the major.
I think this is the highest they can get with this roster. Like I think we said the same thing when they placed 3rd in Birmingham.
Yeah.
I just don't see this team progressing past this point. It's not even because they're individually not that great. It's just because their sum isn't greater than the parts. yeah, every time I watch them play, I feel like if the enemy team was just a little bit like more focused and maybe even better in a lot of ways, they would just like straight up punish Pain for a lot of mistakes. Pain is a very bold team in that regard, and I will give it to them. And I mean, hey, getting fourth, even if they got fourth consistently, that'd be damn good achievement for any team, especially from South America.
That'd be very fucking good, yeah.
It would be, and it would be really important for the scene. I do think this is like an MVP Phoenix-esque sort of like team right now. Like they will probably write this for like a season, and they will consistently, not necessarily upset, because I still expect them to be like top 6 going forward, but they will consistently be like top 6, maybe top 4. But that's pretty much it. I just don't see them winning a tournament. If it happened as last season, where we have like 11 majors and like 10 minors or whatever, I could see them winning a minor. And I could still see them winning like a non-major event. But since we only have like 4 majors and 4 minors, I just don't see them like winning any of them.
Yeah, for me, the way I think about it, I think Pain is actually just like a placeholder 6th. Because you have to remember, like, OG is coming back in. And I think... even though I sold Liquid, I still think Liquid's going to be a better team than Pain.
Likely. It's... Well, in like a ranking thing, but obviously, you know... inside a tournament play, anything can happen. There's going to be like probably that one upset where they like beat OG or like whatever, because it's like a favorable matchup to them. I actually think it's a favorable matchup to them for Liquid. So in that regard, like there's that possibility, but generally speaking, I do also think that OG and Liquid are going to be ranked above them.
All right, so we will move on to Aster, who've already kicked out these stones, as far as I know.
All right, here's some sick inside information. That kick was decided legitimately a day after they got eliminated.
That is like awesome.
I was outside of the hotel, and somebody just came out and was like, "Yo, D-Stones just got kicked." I'm like, woo.
That is some cold-blooded shit.
I feel there must have been some issue with like within the team, because if you place 5th to 6th in your first LAN event, that's not a reason to kick anyone or even make any changes. But there must have been like internal issues. Especially considering if you look at how they played in groups, and then if you look at how they played in the playoffs, I think it's pretty damn obvious that there must have been some sort of fallout either between groups and playoffs or during the playoffs. I just felt like the team was really off in the playoffs, and
I felt like it legitimately didn't learn anything going from groups to playoffs.
Yeah,
like it felt like it was like the exact same team except worse.
Yeah, pretty much.
So like
gonna be interesting to see who they replace them.
Love You, Love Me.
Oh, did they already pick? Oh, you're right. No, you're right.
Right.
I did.
Like they got to do it real quick. So
yeah.
Like, cause the major's like 3 days, and they're there, so they had to do it real quick. So we'll see.
They also brought in Q as a coach on trial basis, which I think is really interesting, because Q is one of those captains that we've obviously singled out as like one of like the more notable captains in recent times. You know, I mean, he did bring Shiki to 2nd place. That is probably one of the biggest accomplishments in Dota 2 history.
Yeah, man.
And I've never really thought that his individual play was ever bad, but he might. I just generally think that any good captain can be a good coach, or generally has a really good disposition to be a good coach. So I think this could be really good. I'm not a big fan of like these old sort of like people, like the veterans being coaches. For example, Burning and even Loda in Alliance. Like I really like Loda as a person, and I do think he adds a lot to the team. But I always think they need a second coach. I always think they have like a unique perspective because they have experience. And obviously Loda and Burning have both been captains before, but I still feel like, you know, you could need more. I know that teams, trust me, go to any team, by the way, that has a coach and ask them what they think of that coach, and then ask them if they think they could need a second coach. They will always tell you, no, our coach is fine. No, we don't need that. Because they either never understand that they need more, or they never want to admit that they need more. And I think that, I know we're going to get to that later, but I think Alliance needs a second coach. And potentially Team Aster needed a second one as well. Who knows? I think it's good to have Q on there.
Well, yeah, it's true. Like, even though like Burning was technically a captain at points, he was never truly a captain. Like, not in the same way ROTK was. Like, I think ROTK would probably make a fucking great coach, right? Like, everything we know about that guy.
Yeah.
Right? So, but Burning, it's much harder to say. I don't really know Loda as a person or as like a leader type. So I can't really say. I feel like he'd obviously bring something, but I don't know necessarily what. So in like when you come at it from like outside of Dota 2, when you come at it like from a CS:GO perspective, the most important thing is to have the combination of the captain and the coach, and have them like synergize well together. And in that sense, it's like incredibly hard to know because we don't have any insight into the Chinese scene as to who's actually captaining this team, or if it's just like a fucking LGD thing where it's like technically none of us are captains.
Our coach just tells us what to do, and we're just like, we'll just run with it.
Yeah, like it's working for them obviously, but I'm gonna go ahead and guess that's not like replicate. You can't duplicate that every time. There's a reason like the fucking captains are like the fucking gods of Dota.
Hey, if it was that easy, we'd have a lot more LG, but clearly it's not that easy.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's move on. Skip EG. Complexity, we may as well skip, right?
We can talk about complexity.
All right.
All right. What did you think of them? I'm curious.
What did I think of them? I thought to myself, okay, surely the 50-50 will not come into play here because I don't think this team is as good. So there's no way in my mind I literally thought there's no way possible that like he could go like 1-1 all the way, but he kind of almost did. He 2-0'd NIP, cause talk about Eternal Envy, 1-1 forward, 1-1 Evos, which is like pretty typical if you think about Eternal Envy teams. And I thought
they actually
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll go ahead and say like it's like there's like a lot of chaos in this team, and what I mean by that is like not in terms of like internal stuff, but I mean like in terms of the ideas and the heroes they were playing. I'm pretty sure they haven't adjusted the fact that Eternal Envy isn't a true support player. Like they had to like work around that. They've never played with Skim before. Like yeah, there's a bunch of weird things going on with this team. It's like pure chaos.
I just wanted to bring up. Maybe we should just include the Dream League performance in. Anyway, I know we're like talking about Dream League probably as like a separate tournament, but since like this, I think the only team that actually played at both.
Yeah.
Might as well talk about Dream League. I think it's like it was pretty obvious that this team just was struggling to like play together because they've literally never played together. And then they also moved Z-Freak to the 5 position and Envy to the 4 position, which was something that they decided on, I think, after WSOE. So after they had like the really rough tournament, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they play that. So they come into ESL and they just play really rough, really rough tournament at ESL. I mean, they did turn it around with like a 2-0 over NIP, but then I think the playoffs against EG showed that they're just still not there, even remotely. I don't know. I do think though that at Dream League they kind of turned it around, at least in the first 2 matches, but then they went on to like get
knocked out.
Destroyed almost by Infamous and RNG. Like they didn't even get destroyed. That's the worst part. They were 1 up in both series, right? Mm-hmm. And then they play really good second game, but then they almost throw that game, and then they don't show up in the third. Like that's actually literally that's what happened in both series. So I don't know. I feel like there is something that needs to be worked on, but I don't know. There is promise in the team, but still, I don't know. That whole EEZ Freak roster thing swap, I think a little bit messed them up going into the event. I think if it had happened sooner, maybe like at the beginning of the season, I think we probably would have seen a different complexity at this event. But because it happened like just before ESL 1, it probably messed them up.
I feel like they're gonna have to decide this soon, but basically they need Eternal Envy to just settle on one rule. Whatever the rule is, he has to settle on it.
Yeah, I think he settled on 4 now, as far as I can tell, anyway.
Yeah, all right, because like, and I guess Z-Freak's gonna take a hit on this one because obviously he's like the famous 4 player. So
yeah,
we'll see how this one goes. But yeah, is there any other team here worth mentioning?
Could probably talk about NIP and Forward. NIP.
Let's skip Forward. They had a stand-in right with Scalibur. Sure. Doesn't feel like they're really their team.
Sure, might as well skip it. No, you're right. Then NIP.
Yeah. So.
Unfortunate for them, they have to replace probably their best player in 3-3. Going into the major, but I think at this event they and like in the group stage, I think you could kind of tell what they were like trying to accomplish with this team and like why they built this team in the first place. There were like really good glimpses of what they're capable of, but at the same time, if you get 2-0'd by a team that has a new roster, effectively Complexity, for example, I think you have issues in that team, and this is still early, so obviously there's something they're going to be working on, but there's still issues. But I think mainly it's just drafting, figuring out like how to really enable all of their cores. It feels like obviously, I mean, PPD knows how to enable 3-3. He's been playing with him for like a season already. But I think you can tell that there's still like a sort of like a disconnect between the 3 cores.
Yeah, because like the way I think about it is like I'm not like if PPD can pull this off, he might be a bigger genius than I gave him credit for, and I've already given him like a shit ton of credit, right?
No, that's true.
Right, but like my entire problem is like everybody's talking about like Fada, like yeah, he'll be fine, he'll return to that mid level he was all those years ago. I was like, I'm not so certain about that. Mid's changed since he's played it.
You know, I was one of the people that actually said that he is probably going to return to like whatever, but man, that ESL 1 performance was rough. And rough doesn't even begin to describe it. I went through a couple of replays because, I don't know, I just like looking at replays and like positioning, even just simple things such as you like utilize like using the right spell at the right time and like in the right position was just completely off from him. I did talk to him at the event and he did say that he, you know, obviously he's still trying to get used to everything, but he seems confident enough to think that he can get back into it. But like you said, the mid position has changed a lot over the couple of years, and I think this adjustment phase might last a little bit longer. I do still think that he's going to get back there, but it might just take a while.
It's going to take a while because he also not only did he play off lane, but he played it in a style as like completely supportive.
Yeah.
Right.
I will say though that luckily for him the patch is going to come soon, and depending on how big the patch is going to be, everybody might have to relearn.
That might be a small reset, right? But like,
yeah.
My other problem is like Ace, like you already said it, and I think it was true all the way to the very end with his run of Secret. 1, 2, 3, maybe great heroes. No other heroes out beyond that. Like if he can somehow make him work and Fada work, then PPD would be a fucking genius.
It does seem like PPD has been trying to do that. For example, he's been giving him a couple of morphlings, I want to say.
Yeah. Like I've seen him like Ace is better-ish. It's hard to say, isn't it? It's like just a few good games.
I'm not like we've been criticizing Ace for not having like a certain hero pool with Secret, but obviously we don't know how much that was actually his fault, or maybe it was Puppy's fault and not like trusting him with certain heroes. Because we have seen him on other heroes now with NIP. Like again, we've seen him on a Morphling. We've seen don't think we've ever seen him on Antimage, for example. With
he should have given Antimage, right? I remember.
Yeah, that. So these are things where you kind of have to wonder like how much of it is actually his fault and how much is like Puppy's fault for not like trying to believe in him or not trying to like play around him like fully. But then I still look at like like 2 Arc Warden games or whatever for Ace, and I'm like, yeah, this is obviously because they have Ace and he thinks like. Like Arc Warden is one of his heroes, and yeah, you should utilize that. But if you look at the games, they lost both of those Arc Warden games. Yeah. Like if you can't pick him Arc Warden and expect to win the game, how are you supposed to like play around that?
Yeah, like that always annoys me. Like if you truly are like the super carry player, and like they do straight up give you like your ultimate hero, you have to win. Like straight up, that's your duty. Sometimes.
And the same kind of applies to 3-3 as well. Not to the same extent, but he is also one of those sort of like cookie cutter, cheeky players that has this weird hero pool. Like right, he had the Lycan, he had the Brute Mother, he had the whatever, like all these micro heroes effectively, that he's really good at and that needed respect bans. But even outside of those heroes, like if you look at less cookie cutter and more traditional offlaners, it also felt a little bit flat. So I do think that having 2 of these types of players is actually pretty dangerous for NIP going forward. One of them, or both of them ideally, will have to adjust. I do think it's Ace is gonna be the one to adjust first, because again, like he's like a pop star, right? He has all these carries that he is definitely good at least in pubs, and that he does keep on playing. But I do think that, again, we have seen finally at least the morphing from him. I keep coming back to the morphing. It's just, again, I haven't even seen it from him in secret. So I do think that there is hope for this team, but it feels like they have to do so much work. Both 3-3 and Ace need to work on their hero pools, and then Afata just has to get his fuck together. And then Saxa traditionally hasn't played the 4 position.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and honestly, his transition was actually pretty smooth. I didn't really think that he was that off. Couple moments here and there where you would say, yeah, if this was like Zai or whatever, or like any other like experienced 4 position players, they probably hit that like stun or roll, like played a bunch of Ursurids. But generally speaking, Saxa's transition to 4 position was pretty smooth, so that's kind of nice. But yeah, effectively, this team has like 4 people that need to work on their shit like individually, and that's actually really, really dangerous.
Yeah, but like if PPD can pull it together, like I said, I think he's an even greater genius than I give him credit for.
For sure.
Like if it bears repeating, but the harder like the road is, the more you prove yourself technically. So like, it was sick that he took EG all the way to the finals and won TIs and all those other tournaments. But because this is like, I think this is probably his weakest roster overall. It's close to the previous Optic one, I guess, because CCNC was pretty right.
But they did have
Zai.
They did have Zai, so there was that synergy between the 2 supports already, which is, again, I can't stress enough how important it is to have like a really solid foundation in the 2 supports. And then they had like,
but like they had known quantities, I guess. That's
they had known quantities that they could work with. Like, as much as I give shit to CCNC, he's still a very, in that regard at least, he's still stable. He might not be like the best player, but at least he can expect a certain level out of him, and he has overperformed a couple of times during the last season as well. So there is a known quantity. Like, the known quantities in this team are PPD and
Saxa.
3 Saxa, and then 3-3's Brute Mother. Those are the known quantities. Because again, you can't even rely on Ace's Arc Warden anymore. He lost both of those games.
Yeah.
And when you lose both, like when you're like a cookie cutter player that forces respect bans, but people don't even have to respect ban it anymore because they don't need to respect it. Like, what are you good for? They banned Meatput twice against him or whatever. Like, congratulations.
Yeah, that basically means nothing at this point. So moving on, I think that's about it for. Actually, you want to talk about Alliance, right? You want to talk about Alliance?
Yeah, we could talk about Alliance. So team, one of the things,
right?
I picked them as like the team to watch for the season, or one of the teams to watch anyway, because I think they have a very unique playstyle. But one of the dangerous things about these teams is that, I mean, a lot of teams come into these tournaments and qualify for them having a unique playstyle. It's really difficult to keep that playstyle and still be successful with it, because there's a reason why certain heroes and why certain strategies are popular and popular because they're successful. Like, it's not like Secret or let's just say there was like a popular playstyle for Protect 1, right? It's not like teams are playing it because they think it's exciting and fun. It's just because they know it's successful. So Alliance coming into this tournament, I was curious, can their unique approach to the meta, both in terms of hero pools and like playstyles, kind of be successful? The answer is rather no. But I think part of that and part of their failure at this event is because they're just really inexperienced on multiple positions. They should have won versus Pain. They should have 2-0'd them, which I think is really, like, if they had 2-0'd them, they're already actually playoffs. So that's a completely different scenario, right? And they went 1-1 versus EG, which I think is, EG had a stand-in, but still, that's, I think, a very big accomplishment. So in that regard, again, I do think Alliance is a team to be reckoned with, but I'm just, now it's really important. Can they stick to the, like, are they going to stick to their guns? Going to stick to what has gotten them this far, or are they going to adapt? And is adapting to whatever other teams are doing going to be successful? Because there have been teams that have failed at this before. Hellraisers, for example, going into TI7, they had their own playstyle as well. It wasn't successful at TI7. They tried to adapt, and it didn't work, so they disbanded. And I'm just fearful for Alliance, because I think they have a lot of talented players, like Insania, Mickey, even Taiga, Boxy. I don't know, all of them are really good.
Except, I'm not gonna bet on Koifa.
No, I'm not gonna say except Koifa. It's just it feels wrong to say he's talented, considering he's been like in the scene for like 5 years now.
Yeah,
he's more a veteran than
we all know what you're gonna get out of Koifa. Basically, we all know it, right? So I will say this. about Alliance because I didn't get to see a bunch of their games. This season makes it so much easier to break apart. So
yeah,
all I'm saying is like if OG, I won't say specifically OG, but if like another team does like what OG did, it's like, hey Thompson, you want to join? One of them might just leave. Makes complete sense to me.
The thing for me is that I think Alliance has a really good support system.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like the organization. They have Loda, they have Kelly, which I think is a lot of times underestimated how good the support system of a team actually is. Because a lot of times when teams do split apart, it's because the organization doesn't necessarily care that much for the player himself. Like if they're like, if you see like very abrupt like roster decisions, either because the organization wants to like accommodate the player because they really really care for him, or it's because they don't care about him at all. In that regard, like I think Alliance has stuck with this roster for such a long time. I think there's like a certain like love relationship between the two entities now, like between the. It sounds super corny, but I do think that it matters a lot.
Listen, man, I'm gonna tell you the straight truth. Love died at TI8, and in that love, no tale was born as a god. All I'm saying is, if Alliance wants to get to the next level, they must get betrayed by one of these players.
You're actually really right. You're actually really right. That is actually a really good point, and that's one of the things that actually I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but I do think that's one of the dangerous things about this team is that if they perform really really well, other teams will try to steal Mickey and Insania, or like whoever's like performing the best on that team.
Mm-hmm.
Because Alliance doesn't necessarily have like the power to not be the farm team right now. And I talked to Scant about this a while ago, but if you look at pretty much any team in the West, like the big teams like Liquid, OG, Secret, if they come knocking, who's gonna say no to them?
Like, right? No, like none of these guys. Like
no one.
Like
are you gonna pass up on the chance of playing with Kuroki? No. Are you gonna pass up on the chance of playing with
Puppy?
What? Puppy? No.
Like,
yeah.
These are fucking legends of the game. Like here, we'll have to see. Like I will say this about the loyalty angle. Technically, the truly loyal thing for like an org to do would be like to let the player go. Obviously, you have to like negotiate, get the good buyout, whatever, get the business side correct. But like, if one of your players has a chance to like literally join a championship team, you have to let them do it sometimes.
No, I don't know. I totally agree. And for Alliance, it probably would be the case if, you know, like let's say 4 months down the line, they haven't really gotten anywhere, not really gotten any points in the major system or whatever. And let's say Secret comes knocking, wants to have Mickey as their new mid player or whatever. I feel like Alliance would say yes, because Mickey would probably really, really want that. And I think everybody there knows, and pretty much everybody knows, like, if you have the chance to play with Puppy, you really want to take that.
Yeah. Oh.
Plus, again, if they haven't really gotten anywhere, they will realistically know how far they're going to get with that roster anyway.
Oh, I completely forgot this side tangent. I meant to say this in the TIA podcast, but I'll say it now. Hal was right again. The deeper the love, the deeper the hate. He predicted the entire thing, the entire fly no tail thing. Just wanted to point that out. So, yeah.
The deeper the love, the deeper. Yeah, no, that's very true.
How the genius. He should come back to Dota instead of playing whatever the fuck he's playing right now. But all right, we're moving on. I think Dream League. The only team I want to talk about here is Tigers, because I think they're the only team that's going to be relevant in the major.
Yeah, could talk about them. I honestly thought going into it, this was the favorite, because to me, Ajit and In Your Dream have been on the.
Ajit's been pretty good for a long time.
I mean, he's been pretty good for a long time, and it feels wrong to say they're like super talented or like youngsters or like newcomers or whatever, but they've been on the edge of like becoming and like establishing themselves as like tier 1 players for a long time. Ajit was on that Fnatic that was super embarrassing at like what, TI7 or whatever. In Your Dream has been trying with Fnatic as well, but I feel like all of them have been with teams that never really explored their potential, and I'm not so far to say that Tigers is that perfect team for them just yet, but they still made it to the major after like a pretty impressive run in that minor. So I do think that this team is pretty good. Individually speaking, all of their positions are really, really strong. So I don't actually think they have. I actually think they have pretty good chances at the major to, like, not embarrass or get it like a decent showing. Like maybe not top 8, but like 9th to 12th or whatever.
Yeah, it's not bad. Okay, so we may as well go on to the major then, because I feel like.
By the way, Navi not as bad as I thought they would be.
Hey, man,
why? Suniko. Hey.
Yeah, I think I wrote something like basically Navi died for love. Like the entire fucking Dota 2 team died for Dendi.
Yeah. And now Dendi died for Suniko, and that was a worthy sacrifice.
Yeah, he should have died like years ago, though, to be completely frank.
Yeah. But, I agree.
Basically, he just wasted Suniko's years as a superstar player. Now he's only a leader.
Or ain't the major, I guess.
All right,
that's going to be a weird one.
Major
no OG, no liquid.
Yeah, no OG, no liquid. So this is basically everybody's best chance to steal points before OG or liquid come back into the fray. And I feel like a bunch of the top Chinese teams outside of LGD are like maybe 1 or 2 moves away from becoming legit. So in that sense, it's also pretty good for everybody to steal points right at this moment.
I'm gonna make a bold prediction. I'm gonna say that J Storm is gonna play 6.
J Storm. The Forev March stack with Demon as coach.
I think they have a lot of potential in that team. Bryle has been also grinding in A for like a long time to sort of like push it to that tier 1. Forev, individually speaking, has always been one of the best offlaners in the world. As far as I know, he's always just had like personal issues with other players around him. Milan, in my book, has been also one of the players in Europe to like sort of like break into the tier. With Hellraisers, he was the standout performer for me anyway. So with every time there's like an underdog, like a black sheep run or whatever, when one team makes it far, or when one team upsets anyone, there's usually only 1, 2, or at most 3 players that are legitimately good that can stick around for a long time. And if you look at all these teams, for example, Hellraisers, TI7, can you name anybody that is still around? No, except Milan. I think, well, actually 3-3, sorry. So 3-3 in Milan. So, again, two players out of that team. It just feels like every time there's like an upset, it's not because they got lucky, but it's because there's legitimately talent in that team, but it's just generally not the entire team that is that good. And I think Milan is one of the better pieces from that team back then, and he's stuck around until now. And J Storm, in my book, I think they're going to make top 6. I think they can upset a lot of teams here.
Okay. All right. So in that case, actually, I think this one's pretty straightforward. I think LGD is probably the best team here. Right? Am I misreading this, LGD?
No, it's probably the best team here. It's difficult to say because we don't really know well they're going to perform post TI. But generally speaking, we would expect them to be the best team.
Yeah, that's what I figured. After that, it'd probably be toss up between EG, Secret, and then who the fuck knows at that point? Because I feel like it could get very weird. Like I feel like Vici can be very good, but that's only been 1 tournament, and part of me still doesn't want to bet on Paparazzi. Despite the fact that I think they're gonna break through eventually, like, I'm not sure if it's right now.
Yeah, it might be a little bit too soon, but hey, again, they were 2nd place, so like a top 4 finish isn't out of the question for this team.
Same thing with like Virtus Pro, like plenty of good teams here. So
the thing is, it's just really, really difficult to predict this because it's going to be 2 weeks since ESL Hamburg, since teams have been played, and the meta can change a lot actually in that time. Mm-hmm. Not in terms of necessarily how people approach the game, but maybe like which heroes they approach it with. And actually, no, pretty much how people approach the game can change drastically in these 2 weeks, especially since a new team come into the fray. LGD, like if you have the same 16 teams play against one another in one tournament and then 1 week later have to play again, the meta would change a little bit. But if you change just 2 to 3 teams, it could change drastically, especially if it's top teams. Like LGD as a team, like the best teams usually dictate the meta of the tournament. LGD might dictate a new meta. Same with TNC, Fnatic, JStorm. They could bring in new picks, new sort of like dynamics that people haven't really considered going into this event. And then, there's also the fact that some teams are going to be there with their full roster, like EG, bringing in Sumail. Like, just the fact that they bring in Sumail, maybe top 3 team. Who knows?
Same thing with Forward Gaming. They get UR back in. Aster changed their mid laner. Plenty of crazy shit going on for this particular one. So I think we're just gonna have to wait and see. Like it's hard to talk about these teams because basically we just started. So what I want to ask then is, who do you think is gonna bomb out? Paynex is my pick.
Do you mean? Well, oh yeah, Paynex is probably last place for sure. I could see TNC being in last place as well, and Gambit. Yeah. Like those 3 teams are like bottom tier for me right now. TNC just, I don't know. It feels like every time they make a roster change, it just get worse. Not even on paper. It's just like they just stop clicking. Like they have the foundation. They have really good players still, but just like feels like with every roster change, they just become worse and worse, and it just feels like it's just months, like months away or weeks away from like complete disband. So yeah, Paynex, Gambit, TNC, and then maybe Fnatic. Actually, I'm not that big of a fan of Fnatic.
I mean, on paper, this looks like a sick lineup, but
it looks like a sick lineup, but I haven't really clicked. Oh no, wait, got that. I forgot Alliance, not Alliance. As much as I like Alliance or NIP or NIP, one of them is also going to be bottom tier for sure.
Yeah, but I feel like Mind Control would like confuse people. You know what I mean? Like he's such a different style from 3-3.
It depends also on the groups, because if they have a favorable group where they could upset the top performer, because likely the way the seeding works, they're probably going to be like bottom seed or whatever. And it really depends on the groups, depending on the matchups, the play styles. They might upset a couple of people and then they're automatically upper bracket or whatever going into the playoffs. So it's difficult to call because they have such a unique play style that can really be bad or can just, again, like upset anyone. So NIP as a bottom pick would probably be more consistent because they have a stand-in, even if it is Mind Control, and they have all the issues that we mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. I think that about covers it for Dota. So may as well go to CS:GO real quick.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. So basically, a bunch of different tournaments happened: EPICENTER, Blast, Summit, and then right now, IEM Chicago is going down. So I'll just recap these real quick. Basically, FaZe somehow decided Nico is the king, and he has taken over in-game leadership. And he made it work, kind of.
He kind of made it work. Oh no! So go ahead. Go ahead.
Basically, he kind of limped. They kind of limped through the group stages, and then they're like, "Wait a second, we're FaZe. We shoot people in the face. Isn't that right, Nico?" Yeah, that's goddamn right. I'm the second best player in the world, and they fucking shot everybody in the face, and that's how they won EPICENTER.
To be fair, that's kind of how they became really good in the first place. They just out-frag anyone.
Yeah, it's quite sick.
We just have like 4 of the best individual players in the world. What are you gonna throw at us?
Yeah, but basically the entire point is, as far as I can tell, strategically, on a bit more of a serious note, but not really. They just play faster. Like they play more execute based.
No.
And they play simpler, but I think that's gonna get torn apart if they don't like show up legitimately as individuals.
The question for me is then, like, if this is their style, like if they can keep this style up, and if there's going to be like a continued upward trend,
like
what does this mean for Kerrigan?
Well, first off, I don't think it's going to be a continuous upward trend.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Because I think like a lot this particular EPICENTER run was based a lot on Guardian coming back to his like prime form, and he hasn't been like that for like a few months now, not since like the beginning ish of 2018. So it's hard for me to say that's going to continue, especially as teams adapt to them, to this new style. As for Kerrigan, he needs to get the fuck out. And I don't mean that in like a bad way. I mean like he's basically like this team doesn't need him, and he shouldn't want to play on this team anymore. Basically, that's kind of how my opinion about it. Like if Kerrigan isn't allowed to be in-game leader, then he shouldn't be on this team. And they may as well get a different player to enable them in a different way. Like I'd say NBK would probably be the best choice if they're really willing to pay for it. And then as for Kerrigan, I think Kerrigan should just go join another team and then go on another revenge tour like he did against Astralis the first time around. Because I think he'd do it. I think he'd like, assuming the team was good enough, had enough pieces around it, he could probably he'd get that team from 0 to like 95 within like 3 days.
Yeah. I mean, he's already done that before.
He's done that like 3 or 4 times already. He's like, guy's fucking sick at what he does. So I feel like they're just basically stuck in purgatory, and until like like the deadline's coming up soon because I think they're going to have to make a hard choice before in like a week because they have to prepare for the major that's coming up in early 2019.
Shit's gonna be rough, honestly. I mean, you could argue that maybe FaZe has, and depending on how IEM is gonna go, they maybe played themselves into like a false sense of security, which might lead them to believe they might not have to do a change, and it might just rely on Kerrigan to pull the trigger in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like if they just do really well at IEM Chicago,
they might trick
themselves. They might not even want. They might trick themselves into believing they can still win a major with this roster. Then who knows? They might feel like false sense of like not false sense, but like a sense of loyalty towards Kerrigan.
I don't know if they feel a sense of loyalty towards Kerrigan. Like I don't think star players necessarily feel that when they're not winning. Basically,
that's true.
But in this particular case, like this particular 5-man lineup technically still has a chance to win anything they are in because of like the amount of raw firepower they have. And I will say Kerrigan, individually speaking, has stepped up because basically like a bunch of the game has changed in the way like in terms of his personal role. He's basically like to explain Kerrigan's playstyle, it might be easier to explain his like strategy style. Basically, he examines every individual's particular role and playstyle within a set system, and he finds a weakness in that system, and then he creates a favorable duel for his player against that player, or like his two players against that particular setup, and that's how he just keeps abusing it over and over and over again. But now that he's just a player, he's just doing the exact same thing except as an individual player. He's like, oh, he's gonna do this in this particular moment, and I'm gonna kill him. And then like he gets like a bunch of kills where like the guy's not looking at him. So that's kind of what he's doing, and it works even better because he's basically using the SIG and the AUG. So there you go. He's actually doing a decent job as a player, but like it doesn't really matter in this case because like that's not gonna be good enough to beat Astralis, and that's like the ultimate test. If you want to win the major, can you even upset Astralis?
That's the big puzzle that everybody's working on right now.
Yeah. The only person to solve it was MSL, and then he obviously got kicked.
Yeah, that was. I mean, isn't he on like what team is he on right now?
He's on North. He was on North. Now he's joined Rogue. So basically, they just swapped in-game leaders. Some weird in some weird reality TV show, swapping Danes.
Swapping Danes, the worst reality TV show ever.
Yeah, but it was basically defined all of Counter-Strike in a sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, moving on from that, I guess Na'Vi is. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I'm pretty sure they have like 2 of the top 5 players in the world for certain, and I'm pretty sure like Electronic would be like a superstar player on any other team except Na'Vi. It just happens Na'Vi has fucking simple is like a literal god. But yeah, basically, I think those two can literally carry anything at this point. So, except against Astralis.
Except against Astralis because they have like what? Well, they also have technically. That's my Alexa. They also technically have 2 of the best players in the world in that team. At least one of them, Device.
They have Device, but like basically they're just smarter than everybody, and like and like their balance is like so perfect, it's actually disgusting. In a sense, like,
yeah. No, the Na'Vi performance at Blast. I only watched a couple of that, so. Okay. But I honestly thought that I don't know.
Simple is god. Electronic is a god.
I know this is like a different tournament format and a bunch of best of ones or whatever up until like the finals, I think. But still, that was incredible. Like they're just god. Yeah, they're actually just gods.
Yeah, man.
Oh.
I will give a certain amount of credit to Zeus in that he's actually doing decently for his role again. And beyond that though, I still think this team needs a change, and I think it has to be either a Dren or Hobbit. But the entire problem with the premise of that change is like I look back at Zeus's history. It literally takes this guy like 6-7 months to get a team running. Jesus Christ. Like, I don't even know if it's worth it at that point.
Don't think they have the time for that right now. I think they just need to gamble. Simple and Electronic are just gonna like overpower Astralis at the major.
Yeah.
Which, honestly speaking, I feel like if there's any two players that could, it would be them.
I guess literally only those two players in the world that could do it at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I feel. Basically, nothing's really changed. I will say basically one more thing to know. I guess MIBR and NIP from Blast, because they're pretty interesting. NIP basically found the next the best Danish. I mean, not best, but best Swedish in-game leader in Lekro, kind of. And basically, as far as I can tell, he plays like a Pronax style, except he's a really good player. So
yeah, I was honestly a little bit surprised to see them in the finals. I mean, obviously, if you look at what other teams are there, like you literally have, I probably have them just above Cloud9 in that ranking, but going into that anyway, so. Obviously, making the finals was a huge upset, but yeah, it was a pretty good. It's a bit of a shame that they're not at IEM.
Yeah,
actually, are they at IEM?
No,
they aren't. They're not at IEM.
Basically, when the invites came out for IEM, they weren't good yet.
Yeah, and I don't blame IEM at all. You can't foresee that kind of stuff, and North as a European qualifier. I mean, at the time, it was not necessarily like a no-brainer, but whatever. So it's a bit of a shame, but that's kind of what makes Counter-Strike so cool and interesting in a lot of ways, that you have a lot of LANs where you can see a lot of the best teams in the world generally always compete against one another. There aren't necessarily always the same constellation. That makes it really interesting, and it makes you really look forward to the major because there's like
when everybody shows up.
Yeah, that's why everybody shows up, and that's when you get like the big showdown. So. But still, IEM is going to be, and like you mentioned, it's already going on, so it's going to be good.
Basically, here's what I think is going to happen within the next 4 months. If Fnatic don't get this brawling thing to work with Twist, and I don't think they will, because I really don't believe in Twist's mentality to actually play at a top level. Like, this guy's basically like, this guy prefers to play at the low level of Swedish Counter-Strike. I don't know why. But he's literally been like this for years. So because of that, I don't think that team's going to work, and I don't believe it exists as an in-game leader. So what I think NIP need to do is steal Crims from Fnatic. And then you're going to get a championship-level team.
Ooh. That sounds exciting on paper.
Yeah, just kick out Dennis, get Crims, then you're good to go.
Whether or not that's super realistic, I don't know.
I don't really know the Swedish politics to know if that's realistic.
Yeah, me neither.
But I'm just gonna go ahead and say that's the ultimate Swedish lineup right now.
Yeah, that's probably very true.
Or I guess the other way you can go is like get Crims and Olaf Meister back, and then kick 2 players on NIP, and then you get the ultimate lineup. But that's probably way more unlikely to happen. Whereas just one of Crims is good enough. The other thing to note is MIBR. Like, have I ever told you about the team concept of color in Korea?
I think you might have.
Yeah,
sounds familiar.
Yeah, basically, like every team has like a specific color or like specific identity, and so if you're like colorless, that basically means it's really hard to pin down what you're actually good at. That's kind of how I feel about MIBR in the current state. By kicking out Taco, they lost everything. I don't know why, but they lost a huge chunk of what made them so fucking great. Right? Like the 3v3s.
That's a really good point, yeah.
The clutches, the ultimate under pressure team, like, oh, round 31, we're gonna fucking win now because we're gonna do some bullshit hero play you've never seen before.
Yeah, I mean, that team used to be the worst team to face in like round 28, like round 26 to 30, because they would just win everything. And now it feels like this team is just all over the place. Yeah. I do think they've been improving a lot ever since they first got Stewie, and obviously ever since they then also got Tarek.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the pace at which they're improving is going to be enough for the major.
Yeah,
unless they have some super duper boot camp or whatever.
Like, basically, my problem is they still feel colorless. Like they're not defined by any single player in that team. coldzera no longer defines them because they don't have Taco, and Taco kind of enabled and like enabled Coldzera. Like that's why that's the ultimate duo, one of the ultimate duos. Despite the fact like Taco is nowhere near like any of the top level players, he was fundamentally critical for Coldzera. I think. Fallen, yeah, he's back as an op, but is he like the superstar opper of 2016? Not really. Stewie, he's had moments, but is he really like that same Stewie of Cloud9? Is Tarek like when they did that major run? No. Is Fur like some crazy fucking fragger from 2017? No. It's like that's like my problem basically. This team is like feels colorless at the moment. It's like bland. It's like there's nothing really like special about this particular team as individuals or as a unit yet. And I don't know if they can actually fix that. I feel like that might actually be inherent in the team composition.
Yeah, I'm afraid so as well. It does feel like, and sometimes when I watch them play, it feels like, this sounds like a very easy argument to make. Like, oh, 3 Portuguese or 3 Brazilian players, and there's like 2 American players, so there's going to be fragments in the team. But it does sometimes feel like they're not actually like playing, like, you know, it doesn't always feel like, all right, Stewie is enabling Coldzera in this moment and super like synergistic or whatever. Like the synergies are definitely there between those fragments of the team. I do think that it's gotten a lot better, and I do think that they are going to be a good team at the major. I just don't think it's going to be like a good enough team. No, I'm not even sure if it's like a legend-ready team right now.
It doesn't feel like it, despite the fact that literally like every player is a major winner, and like I consider at least like 3 of them to be legends, and then like Stewie 2K was like on the way to be a legend or close to it, however you want to look at it. So it's like I don't think this is the lineup.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't know. This team's not even consistent enough, in my opinion, to like avert any upsets. I think there's so much potential for a lot of these teams to just upset them, and that's one of the things that I always thought about SK at the time was really good, that they would just not necessarily be that vulnerable to like the upsets. But right now, I don't know. MIBR is just so all over the place that I just see them as this like midfield team that doesn't even necessarily have that high of a ceiling right now. Like they haven't like shown me that ceiling. Maybe they have it, but I haven't seen it.
Like I've only seen it once, but it was literally just one best of 3 against Astralis at Glass Istanbul. Beyond that, I haven't seen anything close to it, and it's been a pretty long time. So yeah, it's hard for me to actually believe in it. And here's the disgusting thing is like if we're talking about like taking over the best in the world, in this particular case it's Astralis. Like a lot of people in their minds, you generally use the analogy of like rock climbing, of like getting to the top, and then they assume in their minds Astralis is just like the static king sitting on the throne. In actuality, it might be easier to think of it as like a fucking race, like an F9, like one of those fucking NASCAR races or whatever. And like at this point, Astralis is like literally accelerating faster and faster. It's about to lap you guys. Like they're growing at a faster rate than almost every team.
And that's the scary thing, that I feel like no other team is really putting that growth, or no other team has that kind of growth right now. There are teams that are growing, but for example, even if you look at Liquid, it doesn't feel like they've grown a lot this year. Like undoubtedly, they've grown a lot this year.
They've grown a huge amount. Like they're basically the best NA team CS:GO has ever seen.
But the question is like how much like this last step is the hardest part for sure. Like this last leg, and it just doesn't feel like, at least from what I've seen them from what I see at Blast, it doesn't feel like they're.
Well, they weren't at Blast, but like they were at another. They were at the other tournament you're talking about, like ESL New York, I think, where they lost the mouse, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, that was the one I was talking. And they were also at EPICENTER, though, right?
Yeah, they were at EPICENTER, and they lost there too. That's what makes it worse, I guess.
It just feels like, they're like, we've made it this far. We've become the undoubtedly best team in NA. We've become one of the best teams in the world. But like that step to the best team in the world is just it feels like such
massive, isn't it?
No, it's massive, and I just don't think that, at least the way Astralis is right now, it's possible for like that's the thing. Even if Astralis wasn't there, you'd still have to compete with goddamn Navi. with simple and electronic in best forms. It seems like an impossible task for Team Liquid. We might be singing a different tune after the major if they've won it or whatever, but right now, to me, second place, third place, yeah, everything's possible, but first place seems so impossible right now.
First place does seem really fucking hard for this team.
Yeah.
But listen, they are straight up the best NA team CSGO's ever seen. Bar none.
Yes.
Like, nobody's even fucking close, basically.
Yes.
So they can hold on to that, and like this is actually similar to like the alliance thing we were talking about. Like they do probably need to stick together and work through this, but maybe they break apart.
It would be a damn shame. It would be really damn shame if they broke apart, because it does feel like they have everything that's like there, and after the major, who knows where Astralis is going to be? Who knows where Navi is going to be in that regard? I think this team has to stay together no matter what, but that's easier said than done. Yeah. There's so many things there's so many factors that come into play. Like for all I know, they're gonna like have a huge fallout at the major or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like that. This is the true test of any team. Like, can they weather the storm? The thing is, the old Astralis, you would have thought they are the kind of team that could weather the storm, and actually, to a degree, this one as well, because they wanted to stick together. It was one of the players that decided not to stick with the team. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of see that, you know, if you do stick together, this is where you can go as a team. If you do get that loss, like this is how far you can get. But
it's hard. Man. It's hard to know because the teams we're talking about are like fundamentally different. Like what I mean by that is, Astralis was built around the core of Dupree, Device, and Nyx, right? So that's like they've been together for a long period of time. Whereas this Liquid core was essentially built, like basically they all. I'm not going to go to the origins, but basically they all have the same mindset that came in when Hiko came in. Like, I want to win now. We are going to kick anybody that's not good enough to perform, and we're going to keep going like that. And it's basically been like that for the entire last few years. So it's a different mindset. There's
a different mentality behind like the way the team's been built. But you know, I'm just saying that if they do decide to stick together, I feel like
they will break through. It's just going to be a very hard breakthrough.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be hard. Either way, like even if they did find like a super sick change, it would be still incredibly difficult.
Yeah, basically like it's pretty funny if you think about it. Basically, like Taco's like, man, how the fuck am I supposed to explain to people how to win? Like that's it, because like he does his fucking job, right? And he is the winners, but like he doesn't know how to explain that. So that's basically his next biggest challenge as a player now. Is like, how do I explain to these guys how to become legends? Because like he himself never had to explain it. Like he just did it.
Yeah. And now, well, but that's one of those things where that's one of the reasons why they wanted to bring him in. Like, who knows how far they would be if they didn't have Taco. Mm-hmm. Like maybe he's already gotten them this far, and it's just really. Again, that last set was just really difficult. But yeah, this is why usually title winners are really desired objects in like any sport, because that mentality and that like even that mindset to like win a game and win a title is really difficult to instill in people that haven't ever won anything. So it's good that they have him, but like you said, like how do you just like project that onto other people? Oh yeah, you just shoot people. Mm-hmm. You hit them in the head.
All right, so last topic. This one's going to be quick. Basically, IEM Chicago is going down. I think we have the exact same top three: Astralis, Navi, Liquid. All right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so I want you to just pick who you think is going to be the fourth best team at this event.
I feel like the easy pick would be FaZe, just because they've shown some good stuff recently, and they're currently playing even IEM versus MIBR, and they're like leading or whatever. At least they led the series. I am tempted to say Big, even though I think they're actually just hit their ceiling, so they're only going to get worse. But I do think that this field isn't necessarily one of the strongest.
I will say this: Big is playing Navi, so you shouldn't pick Big.
All right, I'm not picking Big then. I didn't look at the matchups actually. That is definitely
Like, go ahead and say, we assume Navi is second. They cannot get fourth.
I did not see that. I should have looked at the matchups. Actually, no, Mouse. Yeah, I think it's gonna be Mouse.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be Mouse.
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement because Mouse finally took the advice. They're like, oh shit, we fucking want ESL New York. Now Snacks, get the fuck out. Bring Stico back in.
It feels kind of weird that they just upgraded their roster by just basically sticking to the one that they had before.
Hey man, sometimes you have to leave to realize what you had.
As long as it works, I suppose, you know. Yeah. But no, you're actually totally right. You're totally right. That's like why so many teams, you know, Alliance and Dota, for example, they got back together because they realized, hey, what we had was actually pretty special. You know, and sure they didn't win like a big title, but they still won like 2 tournaments after that.
Like they way overperformed, given how bad they all were by the end.
No, exactly. But that's kind of like, you know, if you have like a certain chemistry, it's really difficult to replicate that. And I do think that in terms of like supporting players, I do think that Stico is actually one of the better ones in Europe anyway. Maybe not like, I mean, show me a support player that's really flashy, right? But I think he's just been a very consistent factor for mouse sports, and I feel like at some point they sort of like took him for granted in a lot of ways, and they're like, hey, what if we can get somebody better that's also like, you know, but no, certainly not Snacks.
I still don't know what they were thinking.
Look, I'm not even like that opposed to them replacing Stico going forward again, but like Snacks, come on. Like that's like replacing somebody with Bulldog right now in Dota. It's that's not fair to Snacks, I guess.
Yeah, but it probably isn't fair to Snacks. That's basically how bad Bulldog's gone down over the years.
I mean, he's literally just a streamer. That's why I said it's not fair to Snacks. Like, I actually thought that Bulldog at the end of his career was actually a pretty good offlaner, but
he is like a decent offlaner. But like, I feel like the team aspect was like completely gone by the end. Like, I feel like he literally couldn't function in the team.
And he legitimately just didn't have any drive to like keep competing. So that was like no team was ever going to pick him up because he didn't actually want to compete that much.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, like I don't know if you heard this, but basically, an interview from Sonny came out where he's like, "So what was the difference between like Stico and Snacks or something along the lines?" And Sonny was like, "Yeah, so basically when Stico used to play for us, he actually when he died, he would come for all of us." So he's like literally doing all of the teamwork stuff. And we just thought that was normal, but apparently that's not normal. And I was like, what the fuck? Oh my God. You guys made that change?
Why would they replace a player like that?
Yeah, like that tilted the fuck out of me. It's like you literally changed the guy who was fixing your comms.
That literally sounds like one of the most key members of that team.
Yeah, so
Jesus.
And then did you ever hear the Snacks interview when he came into the team? Here's what he said. He said, "I don't believe there are support players in the team in CS:GO anymore. There's only attacker, lurker, and sniper. Everybody can throw grenades." And then the best part is at the end of the mouse equation is like, "Wow, today I am removed from mouse." And I just couldn't find my game because they had me play all these different roles and spots that just didn't suit me, and I just can't do it. If somehow Stico did all of this as a support player, then props to him. I was like, Jesus Christ, he learned firsthand there's such a thing as a support player. But
oh my God,
like it's just so funny. I get it's funny in like it's funny in a dark way. It's like we all saw this coming.
I can't tell if this was like an article, if this is something that I heard from like a person in person, or if this was on some talk show. But there's a rumor that the move from from Snacks to mouse sports wasn't actually motivated by the players, but rather management.
Oh, I don't know about that. Like I know there's been some interviews where, like, yeah, Chris J's like, yeah, he contacted me, but like how true is that? I don't fucking know, man. Like you can like you got to take those with a grain of salt, right? So
yeah, but like to me, if that rumor is ever true, right, or if that rumor was ever found to be true, that totally solidified. Like that, I could totally believe that given all of these statements. Then, because obviously none of them ever did their homework when it came to actually forming a roster. Like they legitimately just accepted Snacks as a player because we played against him and he was like pretty good and whatever. Like, no, can I even say that? Because if you replace a player, you do your research in terms of like what you need, and then if the person that you're getting can provide that, and quite clearly they didn't do that. So to me, like if that rumor ever, I hope that DK ever gets. Or how do you pronounce his name? DK.
DK, yeah.
DK. I hope he gets onto that at some point. Maybe it actually was one of his articles. I don't know. But I feel like I've read or heard something like that. There's like a thing between Virtus Pro and like Well Sports and like ES Force and whatever. Yeah. So,
but I will say this: is the most expensive lesson any team's ever taken in the world. Like it's 200,000.
But that's a thing, right? But that's a thing. Well, yeah. I don't want to get too much into that because for all I know, I just
it could also be bullshit. Like it's not like fucking no, but
yeah.
But. To end this topic, I will say this: did you see the final picture of them winning ESL New York, where like Snacks is holding the trophy? So basically, some guy on Twitter like posted that picture, but then he also posted like a zoom in of Chris J leaning in towards LMBT and just put in like subtitles. Oh yeah, congratulations, we totally won. Get him the fuck out of this team.
I mean, that's probably exactly what went down.
I just thought it was so funny because like normally you would think a victory would like solve things, but like they finally understood at that moment we needed to go back. Yeah. All right.
But that's the thing. To sort of like look at it from like a more serious perspective. Winning actually does give you a better perspective of like what a team needs in terms of like to succeed, because then you know what enabled you to succeed and what has potentially held you back all these years beforehand. And I mean that's why PPD let go AY right at the time. Like he knew that going forward they were never going to succeed with him again. And I'm pretty sure this is exactly what happened at this event, that they or at ESL, that they realized, well, yeah, we won with him, but we're never going to succeed with him again. Like, if we want to keep winning, we have to replace him. So, again, I'm glad that they did go to Stico, because I always thought that he was completely undervalued afterwards. Like, as soon as he was let go, it felt weird that people weren't trying to get him that badly. Because, again, I thought that he was really consistent and solid support player.
Like basically, like for the first few months, I was like, yeah, you just gotta wait for Snacks to come back. He's gonna come back just like he did in 2014. And then as months went on, I was like, fuck it, bring Stico back.
Yeah, like okay, pretty much.
I think that about covers it for everything. I will say this: fucking Astralis is amazing. Literally, I don't know if you saw it, but basically, I think they're like Wings except better. They're like literally Wings except better. They have every fucking tool in the game, except unlike Wings, they've created like an entire system so they can continually improve. Whereas like Wings was almost pure instinct.
And Wings was and because of that, Wings was fail at some point.
Yeah.
So for Astralis though, it feels like they're set up for victory for a long time. We might say it now because it's difficult to always like there's always going to be an end of an era, but while you're in that era, it's always difficult to see the end of it. But while this is going on, man, I'm happy to be here while this is going on. Like I'm happy to witness it live because this is incredible. Yeah. Like this, I have never seen like any team perform this well in any sport almost. Like it's rare to see teams perform at this level that consistently in any sport.
Especially the way they do it. It's just like so.
Yes.
It's like a complete lack of mistakes. It's so weird. Right. So. I think about covers it for this one. You got any shout outs or anything?
Shout out to everybody that's watching. I mean, this is like a 2.5 hour podcast or whatever, or 2 hour podcast, and people apparently still do listen to this. So, yeah, cool.
All right. See you guys later.